November 6th, 2024, and the time is 6:30 p.m. Our mission is to provide a safe and caring climate and culture in which we engage, inspire, educate, prepare, and empower all learners in partnership with their surrounding community to be successful in today's and tomorrow's society. Zach, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and then can you please call roll?
Following board members are present at the District Administration Office: Scott Andresen.
Here.
Natalie Copeland.
Here.
Al Dahlgren.
Here.
Zach Dorholt is here. Shannon Haas.
Here.
Monica Shigera-Schwartz.
Here.
Heather Weems.
Here.
Following cabinet members and staff are present at the District Administration Office: Superintendent Dr. Lori Putnam, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education Dr. Jason Harris, Assistant Superintendent of E5 Learning Nikki Hansen, Assistant Superintendent of Special Education and Student Services Shannon Avenson, Executive Director of Community Education Adam Holm, Executive Director of Finance and Business Services Amy Scalrud, Executive Director of Operations Joel Heidekamp, Executive Director of Special Projects Gary Ganji, Executive Director of Research, Enrollment, and Assessments Donna Roper, Director of Community Engagements and Communications Tammy DeLand, Media Technicians Paul Novak and Gordy Scott, and the custodian on site is Aiden Ensure.
Thank you. Then I need a motion to approve tonight's Board of Education meeting and work session agenda.
So move.
Thank you. Motion by Scott, second by Natalie. Zach, can you call vote?
Shannon Haas.
Yes.
Zach Dorholt, yes. Al Dahlgren.
Yes.
Natalie Copeland.
Yes.
Scott Andresen.
Yes.
Heather Weems.
Yes.
Monica Shigera-Schwartz.
Yes.
Then we have the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of non-controversial items that the board adopts routinely without debate. And a single member may remove an item from the consent agenda by requesting removal at the time the consent agenda is moved for adoption. On tonight's consent agenda, item A, approval personnel staff changes. Item B, approval monthly financial report for September 2024. Item C, approval monthly treasurer's report for September 2024. Item D, call for bids, north roof replacement. Item E, McKinley addition and renovation change orders totaling $5,189.58. Item F, Apollo Theater improvements change order totaling $62,120.51. And item G, Apollo LTFM improvements change order totaling $48,220. At this time, does any board member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Okay, looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
So move.
And again, a motion by Scott, a second by Natalie. Zach, can you call vote?
Natalie Copeland.
Yes.
Al Dahlgren.
Yes.
Zach Dorholt, yes. Shannon Haas.
Yes.
Monica Shigera-Schwartz.
Yes.
Heather Weems.
Yes.
Scott Andresen.
Yes.
All right, thank you. We have one information item tonight. We have inclement weather protocols presented tonight by Joel Heitkamp, Executive Director of Operations, and Lori Putnam, Superintendent.
Good evening, Chair Hawes, Superintendent Putnam, and members of the board. I'm here tonight just to share some information items in regard to decisions that have been made at previous meetings and provide an outline for how inclement weather decisions get made throughout the course of our winters here in Minnesota. Our decision-making process really lies within these 5 principles, leaning on the St. Cloud Metro partnership with Sartell and Sauk Rapids, the priority of staff and student safety, knowing the importance of regular attendance and access to education for our students, the predictability of those decisions, and then timely sharing of the information for our students, staff, and families. And so as I highlighted, when we talk about our St. Cloud Metro partnership, we have that partnership with Sartell, St. Stephen School District, Sauk Rapids Rice School District, and then in conjunction with us here in St. Cloud, have agreed to make those decisions together. It's important to note that if a decision does get made, that each individual school district has their own plans for at-home learning or what that may look like, and each district makes up their own procedure and policies in regard for any makeup days. In the prioritization of staff and student safety, that is our number one priority when it comes to some of those decisions. And we do have a provision that if a parent or guardian believes that keeping their child home from school is the best option for them in inclement weather, they may choose to do so. And we just ask that they make that phone call to the school to let them know that that's their reasoning, and those absences are all excused. In the event of a school closure, that first one, again for this year, that was decided, I believe, at a previous board meeting. That first one is a full school closure, non-student contact day. The next 5 become e-learning days, otherwise known as flexible learning days. And then following that 6th closure, we as a school district will determine on whether or not makeup days will be required to finish out the school year. When a student is home during any of those e-learning days, they complete that schoolwork through choice boards, through Seesaw at our elementary level, and through Schoology as the platform at our secondary level. And throughout the course of the day, students have access to teachers and other support staff to support that learning. When it comes to the predictability of decision-making, specifically for cold weather, 35 degrees below zero, either temperature or wind chill is that threshold. And that is based on the St. Cloud weather reporting station. We use the National Weather Service for that St. Cloud reporting station. And one caveat there is if the temperature is predicted to rise above minus 35 degrees by 9:30 in the morning, a 2-hour late start schedule may be considered. For other inclement weather closures, these are factors that are also considered. The amount of snow, ice, or wind that may happen in conjunction or all together in a weather event, and then also the current road conditions as reported by our transportation teams and individuals that are out checking on those roads. And just as a note that we do avoid early release decisions whenever possible, just knowing that that puts an extra strain on families with kids potentially going home without adults there. In regards to time and timing, whenever possible, we make those decisions before or prior. That decision usually or will be made by 9 p.m. if it's going to be made the night before. If you don't hear by 9 p.m., no other decision will be made that day. And morning communication will happen between 5:15 and 6 o'clock in the morning. Some pieces just for our families to know in their own planning when planning for a school closure or a late start. In the event of a school closure or early release, no activities or practices will take place. There are some very, very rare occasions when we do allow that. Typically when teams are competing for section tournaments or state tournaments, if they should happen to be at that point late in the winter or early in the spring. For our younger kiddos, Kids Stop will provide childcare at selected locations during cold weather closures. And if your specific site isn't open, you can go to one of those that is open. So for example, if a Talahi student goes to Kids Stop, but Talahi's not a site, they're welcome to go to one of the other sites that is open. We always post information on our website, and that's a great first place to go for our families when looking for any weather-related information. And with that, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
How do we notify parents?
So we notify through the website,
Okay,
through all of our local media, social media, and then every family would get a phone call and an email.
because sometimes people were saying I didn't get a phone call, but even I get phone calls. And my kids aren't in school anymore, so I'm not quite sure. They must be grasping at every single phone number that they have in the system. Is that?
What we found after looking into that is it's certain cell carriers. So people who I don't want to say the cell carriers because I don't know if that's fair. Is it fair to say? I will say that. But certainly cell carriers were blocking them when, for some reason, when so many went out at once. And so there was, Gary, and you may know this even better than I do, but there is, if you go in, do you remember how to fix that, Donna or Gary? Tammy, somebody remembers how to fix it? It's a team effort here.
Our recommendation is for people to actually download the app, the School Messenger app, and then you get every notification. It comes in every possible way. We also give families the reminder at the beginning of this season that they need to check in Skyward and make sure that their information is accurate. Usually when we get those phone calls, that someone didn't receive a call, it is one of two things. It's the troublesome carrier, or they didn't have maybe they had an old number in their Skyward account or something like that. But yeah, the system pushes out every way.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. This is one of these things that has really improved from year to year and has been really responsive, don't you think, from parents and feedback saying, well, can you tell us at least by here, or can we know here? And just year after year, like, this is a really solid plan.
We also took feedback from our teaching staff, knowing that many of them don't live immediately in the St. Cloud area. And the past practice was we were going to notify by 5:30. And depending on how far away they lived, some of them were getting that phone call while they were already on the road. And so we did bump up that time based on staff feedback to catch them before they were happening to leave for work.
Yeah. Monica?
Just got curious about how the communication goes in different languages, if it goes in different languages.
Yep, we've already got stock messages created, interpreted into all three languages. And so everybody gets the call in English, and then if they've identified another language as a home language, they would get a second notification in their home language.
So they will get both English and the second language?
Yes, they will.
And I'm guessing also that you have, that you have a lot of people that just have one phone or one form of communication and they might not have the ability to get the app. Do you communicate that to children, to the school kids?
Yes and no. So depending on age level, right, we would communicate some of that. We are in the process of taking what you saw here this evening and putting it into a one-pager. Our hope was to have that done by tomorrow, so we can push that out to families. So in one glance, they can see all of our decision-making protocols. They can see where they can find that information if they're ever concerned about the weather. In the event that the phone isn't the best means, whether it's the radio, TV, newspaper, our website, having multiple ways to communicate that to families has been important to us.
So, and do you tell the families this several times? Because the one thing that I have found in many things is that I have a lot of people telling me that things are not communicated. And it's because probably you did it, I mean, as Tammy was saying at the beginning of the semester or the year or whatever.
Yeah.
Can you do these communications like these plan and these things like a lot?
Yeah, the flyer from a previous principal's perspective is going to be a super helpful tool in that in the event that, well, first off, we can be proactive and put it into multiple newsletters, whether it's a school newsletter or even our district newsletter. But as a building principal, as we know things are happening or could potentially happen, or the moment that a decision gets made at 9 o'clock, a building leader could also push that information item out for our families in the moment.
Can you send this protocol paper, the flyer that you're going to do, can you send it when we know that the weather is going to get, like, when we know that, and before the weather gets bad, I mean, when we know that it's getting bad?
I don't want to speak for Dr. Putnam, but there have been days where we haven't made a decision but said that watch the weather or listen for a message, right? And so that would be a tool that we could use in those moments.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Then we have the Board of Education Standing Committee reports. I believe we have 2 reports tonight. We have Board Development Policy Governance Committee Chair Scott Andreasen.
Okay, the committee met on October 23rd, 2024. Assistant Superintendent Avenson and Executive Director of Special Operations Gary Ganji presented Board Policy 606, textbooks and instructional material, and proposed Policy 606.5, library materials. Proposed Policy 606 and proposed Policy 606.5 were reviewed with recommendations to move forward with the first reading at tonight's board meeting. So I imagine we'll be hearing it. That's it.
Thank you. And then Board Finance and Audit. Oh, yes, Monica, question?
Yeah, you guys didn't talk about the retreat?
There's been some discussion about a retreat, and we will.
Yeah.
We were waiting for me to get through all of the one-on-ones, which I was not able to complete based on our schedule, but it is on the agenda for next Wednesday. You're welcome.
Okay, and then Board Finance and Audit Committee Chair Al Dahlgren.
Yep, Board Finance Committee met on October 31st. 2 items on the agenda. The first one was a referendum update that's going to be shown in just a few minutes, so I'm not even going to talk about that one. And the second item was discussion about combining polling places for a referendum. Amy shared a list of polling places for the district and the number of voters by precinct who voted in the 2022 election. The committee discussed options for polling places for 25. We have to make a decision by the end of the year if we're planning to combine any polling places, but I think the discussion of the committee was if we try to combine polling places, it just backfires. People don't like that. They feel that you're trying to manipulate the results of the election, so we probably will not pass a resolution to combine polling places.
It was messy last time when we did it, yeah. Okay, any other reports? Then we have future agenda items. November 20th, 2024, board meeting topics will include the Tech High School presentation, audit report, new course proposals, Apollo High School facilities bond referendum, 2025 Board of Education legislative platform, setting a date and agenda for board retreat, some policy readings. At this time, does any board member want to suggest a future agenda item? Okay. That was everything for our regular board meeting, so I'm looking for a motion to adjourn tonight's board meeting.
Second.
A motion by Natalie, a second by Scott. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay, board meeting is adjourned at 6:49 PM. At that same time, we are opening up the Board of Education work session. First up, we have Building Brighter Futures, a vision for future-ready student. Success, Apollo High School facilities bond referendum. Presenting tonight, we have Principal Justin Scalaroot, Apollo High School, and Superintendent Lori Putnam.
Good evening, Chair Haas, school board members, dedicated staff and families, and to our community partners and taxpayers listening from home. We are excited to launch a critical discussion about the future of our schools and, more importantly, the future of our students. It is our honor to introduce Building Brighter Futures, a facility bond referendum designed to create learning environments that align with our district's commitment to safety, academic excellence, and readiness for the workforce of tomorrow. Every part of this proposal is centered around these 3 key priorities. This vision is about more than just new walls and renovations. It's about building a legacy for our community, one that empowers every student to succeed in a rapidly changing world. We recognize that a safe, welcoming environment is essential for student success. Our plan will ensure that Apollo facilities are up to date with modern safety measures, from secure entrances and upgraded emergency systems to enhancements that support student well-being. Our students need facilities that support rigorous academics and career-focused programs designed to meet the unique needs of this community. By creating spaces that foster innovative learning, from labs for science and technology to areas for skilled trades, we are preparing students to thrive in college, career, and beyond. We've structured this proposal with our community's investment in mind. Through careful planning and efficient use of resources, we aim to make every dollar count. Like always, we are committed to managing these funds with the highest level of transparency, knowing that this investment will benefit generations to come. Tonight, I invite you to consider this vision, not just as a path forward for our schools, but as a way to honor our community's commitment to educational excellence. Together, we can work to build brighter futures for our students, our families, and for the entire community. For our board members, we kindly ask you to take note of questions as we present this evening, and each of you should have a writing utensil and notepad. Upon the conclusion of the presentation, we will gladly respond to all questions. In 2016, our community came together to support a vision for a new tech high school, one that would serve our students for generations to come and embody our shared values of innovation, opportunity, and excellence. The results of that investment have been transformative, creating a vibrant, state-of-the-art learning environment where students can thrive. When we committed to building the new tech high school, we promised to honor the trust of our voters by completing the project on time and under budget. Thanks to diligent planning, fiscal responsibility, and the dedication of this team and construction partners, we delivered on this commitment. Tech High School was designed with flexibility in mind, allowing students and teachers to adapt spaces to a wide variety of learning activities and instructional needs. These spaces enabled hands-on learning, collaboration, and innovation, equipping students with the skills they need for college and career. This new facility has opened doors to expanded educational opportunities, from advanced technology, labs, and career-focused programs to arts and sciences, enhancing both academic and personal growth. As we move forward with the Building Brighter Futures referendum, this video is a reminder of what our community can accomplish together. And I invite us to take a moment to see the lasting impact of our shared commitment to creating exceptional learning environments.
I'm a firm believer that when students can see the kinds of environments that they're going to be working in one day, it increases engagement and helps them connect with their learning in ways that a traditional classroom wouldn't.
In 2015, we asked the community for a new tech high school, and unfortunately we were turned down, so asked again in 2016, and that was approved by the voters. We're incredibly grateful for the generosity and commitment of this community to support our students.
Using the space for the past 5 years has excelled our students in many different areas. Some of them are even in the career now. It's just awesome to see these students back in our community working in local companies and creating content that is at a new level, but they learned the early stages of that when they were here.
Because of the space and the resources and equipment that we have at Tech, we're able to get students that hands-on experience, and they're able to leave our building with nursing assisting certification and other certifications.
The learning spaces are really comfortable to study in and just stop by in between classes.
We use that all the time. It helps us get our work done.
I like how the spaces at Tech give me the opportunity to either work in a small group or a large group, and it really just opens the variety in learning.
It's almost close to a college campus.
The thing I like most about Tech is how the resources are so high tech, but it's a public school so anybody can access them.
There's really a space for everybody, every field, and anything they are interested in.
We are so blessed by our taxes to build this thing, and it was amazing.
We promised that we would get this project done on time and under budget, and we delivered. We also promised that we would change educational outcomes and opportunities for our students, and that's happening at Tech. It's evident from the moment that we step foot through the doors.
I'm a firm believer that when students
At the heart of everything we do is our mission to create a safe and caring climate and culture for every student and staff member. Ensuring physical safety is fundamental to building an environment where students and staff can work and learn, grow, and thrive. All schools in our district are currently equipped with controlled entrances to enhance security, except Apollo High School. This missing component at Apollo highlights a significant gap in our safety measures, one that we are committed to addressing through this referendum. Adding a permanent controlled entrance at Apollo, however, isn't a simple task. To create this permanent controlled entrance, we must build onto Apollo. And with any new construction, due to a recent change in building codes, we are required to add a storm shelter. And although this requirement aligns with our commitment to safety, as the shelter would provide protection in severe weather and emergencies, it comes at a significant cost, one that can only be met through a referendum. This referendum also includes plans for updating life safety systems across our schools. This means modernizing fire alarms, emergency lighting, and communication systems to ensure quick, effective responses in any emergency situation. These improvements are essential investments in the well-being of our students and staff, helping to maintain a secure learning environment across the Apollo campus. Before we dive further into the conversation about the referendum, I want to share a bit about St. Cloud Area Schools, who we are, and the many opportunities that we offer. In St. Cloud Area Schools, we provide rigorous access to state standards. Academic excellence is our foundation. When we look at our graduation rates for our comprehensive high schools, Tech and Apollo, we see their four-year graduation rates for last year are 75%. Statewide, the graduation rate has held steady around 83%. That's since 2019. Our district's seven-year graduation rates are at 78%, which is 10% off the state average. Our district offers students unparalleled access to accelerated learning opportunities, which is a unique strength within this region. These programs are designed to set students up for success, both academically and in their future careers. First, we have bilingual certification. Our students earned nearly 80 awards in 7 languages last year. Those languages included Spanish, German, Russian, Chinese, Somali, French, and Arabic. Bilingual certification is more than a language credential. It represents cultural competence and a skill set that enhances employability in a global workforce. It also earns our students college credit. Currently, nearly 20% of our students earn college credit while still in high school. They participate in advanced placement, college in the schools, and post-secondary enrollment options, thus giving them a head start in higher education and a pathway to reduce college costs. From the data shown on the slide, you can see that our student participation in advanced placement coursework is racially diverse, with participation from white, Black, and 2 or more races student groups, closely mirroring the state's trends and exceeding those nationally. Last spring, students took 494 AP exams with a 70% pass rate. 96% of our students were named AP Scholars, an honor designated to students who receive an average score of at least 3.5 on all AP exams taken, and scores of 3 or higher on 5 or more of these exams. So a highly tough honor to earn. Multilingual learners comprise 23% of our student population. And while attaining academic language proficiency can take 7 to 10 years, our English language learners in St. Cloud meet or exceed the level of any English language learner in the state. We also know multilingualism benefits our students and communities as they enter the workforce. Here in St. Cloud, you're raising the bar by promoting dual language immersion, offering rigorous K-12 programs in Spanish and Chinese. We prioritize individualized learning in St. Cloud. With over 20% of our students qualifying for special education, it is imperative that these students have the instruction and support to meet their individualized education plan goals. At the end of last year, our students showed excellent outcomes in meeting their learning targets. We know that access to career pathways in high school provides real-world meaning to our learning. For some of our students, that connection is crucial. This data uncovers a positive trend in participation in courses that provide exposure and opportunities to learn about careers. It'll be important to provide opportunities for students to explore before committing to a single pathway or any pathway at all. Over 80% of our students are enrolled in courses that expose them to various career fields before they graduate. This early exposure is crucial for helping students make informed decisions about their future and gain hands-on experience that connects classroom learning to real-world skills. Our commitment is for 100% of our students to graduate with a meaningful experience that prepares them for college and career pathways. We believe every student should have the tools and knowledge to succeed, regardless of their post-secondary plans. And when students do become interested in a career pathway, they can begin to specialize in those areas in our high schools. The state calls these students concentrators. So this slide uncovers a positive trend in enrollment activity by career field, specifically as it relates to these concentrators. We know these experiences provide lasting impressions for our scholars and can even lead to work opportunities immediately after graduation. This slide highlights the 2023 graduation rates with a specific comparison between our students' overall graduation rate and the graduation rate for students who participated significantly in CTE programs, or again, concentrators. Notice that most of the demographic groups noted of CTE concentrators consistently have higher graduation rates than their non-CTE concentrator peers, reinforcing the importance of providing hands-on, career-oriented learning opportunities. CTE provides students with relevant, workforce-aligned skills in fields where there is a high demand, empowering them to be better prepared for the job market or post-secondary education. By supporting CTE pathways, career and technology education, we are directly addressing this community's workforce needs while helping students build practical, future-ready skills. As we consider investments in facilities and program development through the referendum, these results underscore the value of expanding our capacity to support CTE and similar initiatives. Providing updated and flexible learning spaces enables us to increase access to these impactful programs, ensuring more students can benefit on their path to graduation. By differentiating and expanding career pathways in our high schools, we can offer unique opportunities that allow students to engage in deeper exploration and specialization within their chosen fields, again, if they choose them. This approach enables us to provide focused resources, specialized facilities, and industry partnerships tailored to each pathway, enhancing learning and career readiness. To accomplish this goal, we need both high schools on both sides of town that are able to fully prepare students. Our vision for high school academic instruction begins with rigorous access to state standards, with core instruction in arts, humanities, mathematics, social studies, sciences, world language, and foundational CTE courses. We then envision opportunities to advance coursework and career pathways that is differentiated between the high schools, providing increased access and depth of learning for all students. These pathways that you can see on the screen are designed with input from high school teachers and administrators, students through their registration, local industry leaders, and current workforce demands. Our goal is to empower students to graduate ready to enter high-growth fields that will support the economic future of not only our students and their families, but of our community. This is a forward-looking commitment to support student interests, workforce alignment, and economic growth in our region. Investing in these specialized pathways through our Apollo facility plan is essential. We know that a solid academic foundation is crucial as we prepare future-ready students. But to thrive in higher education, the job market, and in life, students need more than academic knowledge. They need strong life and workforce skills, including collaboration, communication, creativity, and critical thinking, which are all core competencies we cultivate to prepare students for real-world challenges and varied career paths. Alongside these life and workforce skills, building character is also essential for preparing well-rounded, resilient students. Our focus on character development emphasizes wisdom, resilience, courage, ethics, and adaptability, empowering students to navigate and succeed in an ever-changing world. Combining a strong academic foundation with these skills and traits, we equip students to excel in college, career, and beyond. To ensure our students are future ready, we need flexible high school learning environments. We know that education and work demands are changing rapidly. Locally, the Greater St. Cloud region's workforce demands have evolved over the last decade and will only continue to do so. Our commitment to this community is to prepare students with the knowledge, life, and work skills to be successful participants in our local communities and economies. To do so, we must provide Apollo High School with similar flexible learning facilities like we did with Tech. We do not come lightly to this community asking for funds. Our district is committed to maintaining fiscal responsibility and has a history of balanced budgets. This approach ensures that we can provide quality education and resources to our students without unnecessary financial strain in our community. According to a recent study by NPR, combined with external financial experts, St. Cloud Area School District was identified as the most underfunded district in Minnesota. Despite that challenge, we were one of only 8 of the 43 metro districts who maintained a balanced budget last year without making layoffs or cuts to programs. This distinction highlights our responsible fiscal financial management and our ability to make the most out of limited resources. Over the past few years, we utilized one-time use or lose state and federal funds to update some of Apollo High School's facilities and classroom technology. By using these funds strategically, we improve the learning environment for our students at no additional cost to our local taxpayers. This careful stewardship of available funds has enabled us to reduce the overall cost of our ask. Our approach reflects a dedication to maximizing our available resources and minimizing the financial impact on our community. While we are managing within our means, the community's support is critical to implementing necessary safety measures and meeting students' learning needs. This referendum is an opportunity to invest in our schools responsibly, ensuring that all students have access to safe, modern, and effective learning spaces. The need for security upgrades and learning opportunities through access to future-ready facilities at Apollo High School is not a new conversation for this community. In 2015, the school district proposed a single question referendum for a total cost of $167 million. Where $113.8 million was slated for a new Tech High School and $46.5 million for a renovated Apollo High School. That question failed. In 2016, another referendum was brought forward, this time with 2 questions for funding the facility's needs. Question 1 was asked for new construction of Tech High School totaling $104.5 million. Question 2 was renovation of Apollo High School for $38.75 million. The outcome of that election was that question 1 passed and question 2 failed. The need, however, remained, and in 2020, planning began for another attempt. Preparations were made to run a referendum to renovate Apollo High School with a proposed cost of $53.5 million. In today's dollars, with a high inflation of construction costs, that amount is equivalent to $74 million. The superintendent convened an advisory committee to plan the referendum in February of 2020, but we all know what happened shortly thereafter with a shutdown following in March 2020, and then the subsequent economic recovery halted progress. Now, here we are, 2024, returning to our board and community to ask for support to meet this long-standing need. Because we've been fiscally responsible with one-time use or lose state and federal funds, we have been able to reduce the cost for Apollo, and now we are able to ask for less. Today, we bring forward a recommendation to ask for $50 million to make necessary and critical updates to Apollo High School, with a focus on enhancing safety and increased academic opportunities through flexible learning spaces tied to career pathways. As I shared, the total cost of question 1 is $50 million. And to help put this cost in context, if we built Tech High School today, in today's dollars, the total expenditure would be $175 million due to inflation. So what is our ask specifically? Foremost, we need to build a controlled entrance, which is essential for monitoring and managing access. Apollo High School, again, is the only school in our district without this layer of necessary security. New state building codes mandate that any new construction must include a storm shelter, which significantly increases the project costs. However, the shelter will provide a safe haven during severe weather, ensuring the safety of our school community. The controlled entrance and storm shelter are integrated priorities that work together to protect students and staff in all situations. Beyond safety, the proposal emphasizes creating flexible learning spaces. These spaces are designed to adapt to changing instructional needs and prepare students for the evolving demands of the workforce. Apollo's updated facilities will support advanced career-focused programs, offering hands-on learning environments that align with this community's workforce needs and equip students with practical skills for future success. And let me be clear, even if the district had allocated every dollar of one-time use or lose state and federal funds allowable for construction, it would not have been sufficient to cover the costs of the controlled entrance and the storm shelter. Community support through the referendum is essential to make these updates a reality. This investment will ensure Apollo High School is a secure, modern, and adaptable place for learning and workforce preparation.
All right, good evening, Board Chair Haas, members of the board. At this time, I will share some of the conceptual drawings that we have started with as we start this process and start talking about potential referendum, and then get into some of the ideas within the building itself, and look forward to answering any questions at the end. So what you're looking here is what the door 2 area at Apollo would look like. One of the questions that's come up initially is where's the space capsule? And we would take into consideration community stakeholders and where the space capsule would go, but that's not part of this drawing, as we want to focus on that controlled entrance. So when you see where the words Apollo are, that is where you would enter the building. And off to the right would be where the administration offices would be. So when a guest comes into the building, they would then go in through that layer of secured entry and be checked in just as you would at Tech and every other school in our district, and then have immediate access to administration and to that part of the office area. I do want to make a point, though, that in paying respect to Apollo's history, if you do look at the Apollo, and there is some intentionality in the architecture, where if you think of the initial Apollo project in rockets, we're trying to tie that into the architecture there, as you see that in what the new entry would be. There'd be a slight raised ceiling there, and a lot of things you're going to hear is bringing in more natural light, is which the feedback we get quite often. So we're unable to raise the roof on Apollo, but in some of these exterior pieces, we are able to do some things and potentially bring in some more natural light. So really, when you enter door 2 now, that area is being replaced with what you see there. I will refer back to it, but I also just want to point out to, and if you can see where my cursor is, that area right there is currently where the courtyard is. That's another opportunity to bring some height into the building and to raise that and allow some natural light in. We needed to move that direction to create some more capacity in our cafeteria, because when we get into fine arts and talk about orchestra space, band, and choir, we had to do some shifting of spaces, which was resulted in a loss of some cafeteria space, and this is one of the ways that we were able to recoup that to not lose space there. This is what it would be right now if you walked up from the bus chute, and this is what approaching the building would look like in this proposed presentation. Again, these offices here would be the administrative offices, walking in the main door and checking in through that secured entrance. This is what would look like coming in door 7, the activities entrance. Again, taking an opportunity to raise that entrance and adding some windows there to bring in some more natural light, flooding that into the cafeteria, and then again, architecturally bringing in, say, that similar design idea in door 2 as our stakeholders and community members and guests are coming on campus and seeing this coming into the activities portion of the building. What I have in front of you is a large picture overview of Apollo, and I think the most important piece on this slide, everything that has a color code to it, we'll discuss that here very shortly, but everything that is colored white are all things that have been addressed with one-time use or lose funds, and that's what we have been able to do and be able to touch upon a lot of the learning spaces. Doing some things in the gym, which would not be part of this referendum, and then also in the auditorium in the new theater performing arts center. So that would be an opportunity. Anything you see there as white are things that we have been able to spend those funds, as Dr. Putnam mentioned, to continue to be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. The first thing I want to highlight is the kitchen and serving options. This is a major need at Apollo High School. Right now, we do have 2 lines that are in our serving area. We do have a portable third line that is used sometimes, but it does cause suggestion. The problems with this is flow. We have a large flow problem. It does affect what can be served and how efficiently it can be served for our staff and students. So when you're looking at this green area here, it takes the current kitchen that we have and then extending that to the east to the area, if all of you are familiar with Apollo, but we is kind of the auxiliary gym. And as we talk about storm shelter and things like that, we'll be able to see we can reutilize that space to make that kitchen flow much better and benefiting our students there. In the redesign of the cafeteria, I just want to make a point that the concessions and the dishwashing station would be now located on the west brick wall against the back of the Performing Arts Center. The middle space here would be very much as you see it today, but then going back to originally talking about this area right here is where is currently the courtyard, which would now have that raised ceiling and would be covered, and that would be open up for cafeteria space. And as I mentioned, I'll touch upon it when we get into fine arts. The reason this becomes necessary is because this is the orchestra room here, which is currently in our Eagle Lounge serving area in the cafeteria. So we lose a little cafeteria space here to be able to go into where the courtyard is now. One of the pieces of intentionality was in the kitchen and serving area is we want, once you walk in through the secured entrance, we want to create a welcoming feeling. We don't necessarily want it to feel during the days you're walking right into a cafeteria. So as you know, we have that soft seating there that sits in front of the courtyard, and we would continue to have that. And then now behind that would transition into the cafeteria spaces where if you came between 11:30 and 1:30, there would be the students eating lunch there, but there'd be a very good flow to it with the shifting of those spaces. Next, I want to point out the fine arts and administration offices. I'll start with the administrative offices. I made mention to that, and that's right in that space here. That was that square that you saw as you were walking up to the building and coming in door 2. And this you would get entrance into through the controlled entrance. This red block down here is would be part of the offices as we know them right now. We would lose some space here because we would need to create a walkway to get through with the addition of that cafeteria space, but nurse's office, guidance offices, those offices that are housed in that space now would still be housed in that same area. And then talking about fine arts, those are all the things that are highlighted in yellow. So I made mention of the orchestra space that would be located right here. And one of the things we really want to point out is, being off the cafeteria and having in proximity, we want to make sure our kids are seeing the things that are happening there, taking things that we've seen at Tech and bringing the classroom out to where the students can see them in those spaces. When you look at this white space here, that is the Performing Arts Center, which will be completed in February, so that's why that is colored in white. One piece that we have not been able to, or we're not able to address with one-time funds, not being LTFM funding, would be adding the scene shop, and that's something that we definitely at Apollo are. That would be an addition, something that'd be needed right off stage right, where you would be able to, they'd be able to build sets on there. And then in the back, you see the choir and the band rooms would be located here. Similar spots to where they're located. obviously with that modern touch to it. And then on that back wall, right off the bus chute, adding some much needed storage and some much needed, some practice spaces and opportunities for our students to be able to use, practice their skills throughout the day in proximity to where their teachers and instructors are. So you see, spacing-wise, fine arts would be very similar where they are in the building now, just with renovations to them to bring them up to today's standards for our students. Large picture, looking at the learning communities. So now everything we've talked about has kind of been in the A wing of the building. So the cafeteria, talked about music and fine arts. Looking big picture, everything Dr. Putnam talked about, flexible learning spaces, preparing for now and preparing for the future and how we're able to do that. I think one of the first and foremost things you see right here, again, things we were able to do with one-time dollars is the new single stall restrooms, and those would stay as they are. That's one thing that was, we were able to update with those funds. And then behind that, really bringing some CTE to the forefront of the building, being able to bring a modern culinary kitchen to the building so our students have that culinary experience and be able to grow on that, as we talked about in that Future Ready programming. Creating spaces that have the infrastructure so we can prepare students for now, but also be thinking, what in 10, 20, 30 years do we need space for? And giving those spaces the flexibility to be able to adapt to the needs of the workforce and to the changes. I've been thinking about this a lot and thinking about this presentation. One thing you're seeing a lot of is robotics and robotics labs. When they built Apollo in 1969, when it opened, that wasn't on anyone's radar, and they weren't thinking about what could that look like. And I think being responsible, being fiscally responsible, and creating spaces that are good for now and for the future, it gives that opportunity for us to do so. One of the questions in working with the architects and, what does that mean, like the infrastructure piece? That's updating, all of the power, all of the wiring, making it capable to run, the computers that we need to run. And those are things we're looking at for potential courses in computer sciences. And as that grows, what's computer science going to look like in 10 years, and trying to create spaces that are prepared for what that looks like with us not knowing. And then most importantly, bringing that out for the kids to see and being able to be a part of it and making that flexible and incorporating, parts of our resource center. That's a very large space, and having that flow of collaboration spaces. Two things that I'll make note of in the 400s and the 600s, people that have been to Apollo and all, you have, and the large group rooms, one of the things that would be done there is changing those into collaboration spaces. When you go into the learning communities at Tech, students have the ability to have spaces to go outside of their classrooms, close to where their teachers are, but be able to work on things. What we'd be doing in those spaces is we'd be leveling those off. We'd be adding windows to those. So now those would be open spaces, bringing light into those areas that currently don't have that and are really in the middle of the building. They truly are, to create those collaboration spaces for kids. And then outside of that, those classrooms, and you've seen them all with the updated, furniture and the carpet and the things that we were able to do with the LTFM, the one-time money. Little things here and there are going to come up, but those would be pretty much as is, all those classrooms that you see in white. Then as we transition over into kind of the center of the building, beginning of C-Wing, that's Iggy's, which is the teacher's lounge right now. We would be looking to keep that as a teacher's lounge area, but also be thinking about, even from when Tech to build to now, what's different, and that's CMVA. And how do we utilize classroom space? How do we make this a space? So creating a teacher's lounge, a staff area, but also has individual, soundproof areas where if a teacher's communicating with a student, or if a teacher wants to teach their CMVA class or record a lesson in that space, that they have that flexibility to be able to do that. And what that does is then it opens up a potential classroom space, and it's using spaces efficiently and really helps with the flow of the day. Going into the science areas, as you can see, these areas have been relatively untouched. And when I say relatively untouched, it's for 50 years, and they need to be updated. The science facilities at Tech are beautiful, and then, being able to take a tour of there, they definitely have that opportunity to do a lot of different things. So these would be renovated to our standards of today, what we expect chemistry labs to look like, meeting all the safety standards, changing around. Right now, all the furniture in there is permanent. There is no moving that. So looking at getting feedback from staff, and you're seeing these right now, these spaces are shells. The next step, if this board decides to proceed with this, is then how do staff want to give feedback to make these spaces, and how do students want to give feedback to make these spaces, to make them fit for them and for future students and future staff. So the science spaces would all be updated. These ones that obviously see a table, this whole row, those are lab spaces. The spaces over here are traditionally used for Science 9, biology, and physics. So they would all be flexible, though, to provide, to be able to do different things, to be able to have when we start talking about specifics, gas hookups, things like that, to make sure that we're providing that space. Again, on the far, so this is the south end of the building. So like the teacher parking lot, if you're familiar with that space, this space over here, we're creating another collaboration space. So this is opening this space up. If you're, what is that space now? How can it be a collaboration? This is currently where we're offering foods classes. If we'd be moving those classes to the forefront, bringing that piece there, so we can open that space up for our science teachers to use, our math teachers, all of those teachers that are in that particular part of the building now, right? That may change, and those might be different classes. Math may move different someday, but that would be available for them to be able to do, have their students be working in small groups, be able to do some things collaboratively. Once we get into the spaces over here, these are our art rooms, and taking a look at, again, a lot of infrastructure stuff, what's changing in art, how making sure those have the power that we need, making sure that we're providing those opportunities in 2D art, 3D art, making sure our AP art students have what they need to be able to create what they want to create. And that's, you go in that class, there's some amazing things happening in there with amazing students that are passionate about art. And then also, looking long-term, what does art look like? Being flexible with that to be able to adjust to the needs of the teachers and the students, but also keeping that traditional aspect of being able to, stick to those core pieces of that curriculum. This left-hand corner is white, and I do want to point out one thing. For the most part, we've been very fortunate. We've been working with SME Prime, and many of you were a part of our SME Prime days, and when we had the grants and had those award ceremonies. So we've been able to really update that area. So the one piece I want to notice, there would be a slight adjustment to the roof line in our autos area, because as we've been talking about providing different programming, and we talk about the EMT and EMR programming, we have the 2 ambulances, we just don't have a place to run the programming. We're going to start with EMR this spring, and then the goal is to build that to EMT, but we also want to provide diesel mechanic programs. So now that we can actually service, our students can service the ambulances, our current structure doesn't allow, the space isn't there to be able to do that. So not only will we be training future paramedics and future fire and future police, we'll be working with their classmates who will be servicing the vehicles that they're working in as part of this program in that part of the building. And then opening up this area right here in the middle, another collaboration space. And if we've been talking about it, but not just collaborating with CTE, which is down in this area, but looking at the art students. And if they want to, go in and work with a metals teacher, which is now just right across the hall instead of behind a closed door, and experiment with other mediums of art to be able to bring that and to express themselves in different ways there. So not having closed doors, having these places open where art flows into metals and woods and all of these areas, and there's spaces for them to be able to do that. And those, you all know that when you walk down that space, I mean, it is hidden. There's a beautiful auto shop. There's a woods shop, a metals shop. We've got a photo studio. No one knows it's there unless you've had to go down there for a class. I'm not kidding. I gave a 20th class reunion a tour, and I brought them back there, and they were very pleased with what they saw, but many of them said, I did not know this was in this school. that's a problem, because how do we get kids interested if they don't even know what's behind, their own doors? And that's, such a key piece to bringing that to the forefront. So this is a big piece of, and then over here, kind of closing things out. So this right here would be the EMT area, where we would have this ambulance bay here. As you know, we've secured partial funding for that, and as we continue to do that. So we do have, we thank those that have, worked to do that, but now finishing that off. And what that would look like, we've already partnered. We've gone over to St. Cloud Technical College. We saw what their program, we learned a lot about it. They're excited because we're going to get kids started, and then we can, work towards getting certificates. But as those of you that don't know, when an EMR program, emergency medical responder, is the first step leading to EMT, and then EMT leading to whatever doors those students want to go. We've toured other places in the state that are offering EMT programs. So we've seen and we know what we're able to do, and just putting this all together. Those of you that are familiar, this is the old print shop. So if you've ever had to pick something up at the print shop at Apollo, that's what that area is. So it's currently vacated, but next to it would also be a CNA lab. And that you see that CNA lab, and as you walk by that CNA lab at Tech and see those hospital beds and see those students working and doing all those things, our CNA lab is in an old teacher's lounge because you have to have a sink. This would be an opportunity where the EMT lab is next to the CNA, or the EMT area is next to the CNA area, where they can all work together. Teachers can work together to create that real life, even emergency room like experience. So that would be the big scope of what the learning communities would see, and I know that's a lot. So in a few moments, I appreciate those questions when we're ready for them. The last piece I want to touch upon would be activities. And I think the most important thing is we've had a lot of discussion about when we build and talking about the controlled entrance where we started. And that's where I want that focus to be, because it is a necessity. And as the principal of Apollo High School, someone who's worked at Apollo High School since 2006, the controlled entrance is just something that I know all of our staff and students, they would appreciate that, to know we've got that same level of security as the rest of our district. Building that, we need to build a storm shelter, and it's a square footage thing, and what should a storm shelter be? So we really want to be intentional about it can be used, and the community can use it as well. So we've decided, so the storm shelter, with the space it needs to be, would be this area right here. We had a lot of great conversations. If you're trying to think where this is, if you know where the pool is, it's kind of in that back corner. As you're walking through the main office, it's behind that. There's a big blue shed there now. I'm just trying to give focal points for you, maybe know where it is. But we want to be intentional if there was, and it's happened one time since I've been there, but it's happened. And we had a tornado, and tornado sirens went. How do we put it in a spot where it is accessible for students? So we fully understand that, knowing that coming, we wanted it as central in the building as possible, so we could easily there's lots of doors. So in that situation, you would have lots of ways to get in and lots of egress when necessary. So making this, an accessible storm shelter for our students if it was ever needed. Couple of changes that would happen in this area. Again, with the change in the kitchen space, you would see that the rest of that space that we call kind of that, it's a gym that's too small to have basketball, and it's not quite right to have dance, and we've tried to do different things in there, and it's quite frankly storage right now. We would want to, that would turn into what would be like a fitness lab, similar to what cardio lab, similar to what Tech has. The area that's currently the girls' locker room would be the weight room for all sports to use, and activities and community as well in here, and it would be adjacent to that to that storm shelter. So you'd see that you'd be able to use those together. And then the locker rooms, the footprint would be, where they sit would be the same, but they would be reshifted to be 4 independent locker rooms. And what the most important thing about them, if you've ever been in the locker rooms at Apollo, and that I don't know if you all have, they are, again, the 1969 shower. It's a tree of 5 shower heads, and there's about 6 of them in each that are unused by our students, and they just are not up with the times as far as that, and they would be changed to individual stall showers with curtains for students for privacy purposes for all of our students. And this would obviously be for our activities participants, our physical education participants, and then obviously for community education rentals. Our pool is used all the time by community groups, and then any visiting teams. And so it'd just be restructuring that current space and updating those shower areas. Looking at the outside, and again, where it's just kind of the overview, I just want to make a point of the multi-purpose stadium was renovated, would not be touched, and that's been done in the past couple of years. Just from your view up here, you see the new bus chute, which is working great for us, and we really would not be touched. That is done. The new parking lot is done, would not be touched. It can all be used for everything we're proposing. And then with LTFM dollars, long-term facility maintenance dollars this summer, these last couple of parking lots are going to be completed. So no parking would need to be done as part of the project, or minimal. There would be some accessible parking added down here, because that is a piece of feedback we got last year. We hosted a state tournament for football, and they said you need accessible parking down by your stadium. It is a long walk to get down the path, and that was a piece of feedback that we took and did not take lightly, and wanted to fix that problem. As far as fields, very similar. You see the fields that exist today, fields that exist. We would explore possibly adding one more field here to meet the needs of all the of soccer and other programs that need those grass fields, and just some slight adjustments to baseball and where track and field is doing some of their field events. But that would be the outside, the grounds piece. And then again, you can see a good overview picture of where the storm shelter sits. So we could get all of our students to this spot when we needed to, fairly quickly. I know we could. So that would be, and then right here, this yellow picture would be the addition of, that is the controlled entrance and that administration offices. So the two yellow pictures are the two that would be new construction that obviously we've discussed now a few times.
Thank you. And before we dive into the next step, I just want to say how fortunate and we are, and how grateful I am to have an Apollo principal who can speak so fluently and passionately, right, about the learning opportunities, and who truly knows that school and its community inside and out. So Justin, thank you. So now we're going to dive into question 2. So in addition to the proposed changes that you just got to see and hear described so well by Principal Scalarud, administration recommends asking a second question of our taxpayers. You know, over the last several years, but more increasingly, we hear from our students, and as we hear, I convened a superintendent's advisory committee of local community and business leaders, and they interestingly echoed our students and community feedback that we need a place. There's a lack in this community of an indoor facility to be able to do community gathering, indoor activities. Certainly there is places to play basketball. We've got numerous wood courts and floors, not only in our district, but at the Y, but there is no place for indoor turf. And so they asked us to please develop a proposal and consider this question. So now we're bringing it to you, asking for your support in addressing this community need, and more, even, I wouldn't say more importantly, but equally as importantly, a need of our own students who participate in activities. So we are recommending that we build an ISD 742 indoor multipurpose facility on the Apollo grounds. And this facility will provide access to recreational activities, which you'll hear more about. They'll provide access year-round and will be available for public use and rental. And the cost of question 2 is $15 million. And Justin's going to walk us through the ways that this would fill a gap in the community.
So this is a first look at what the proposed 742 multi-purpose facility could look like. When we're thinking about our community and the needs we have, I think about if you drive around all summer long and see all those kids, our kids, playing soccer, playing football, playing lacrosse, hitting golf balls, doing all those things. And then we get to this time of the year and I ask, well, where are those kids and what are they doing? And they may be playing basketball and the YMCA is packed at this time of the year. But in a community our size, and we have so many kids that love these activities and our community in general, this idea came about that can we provide this year round? It would be open year round, but an opportunity for our students. The conversation that we, as these conversations were had with our community advisory group and others, our spring sports are all Crush except for track and field. So this is an opportunity for our Crush boys and girls lacrosse, our Crush baseball, our Crush softball, our Crush golf teams, when I talk about this in a few moments, those teams to have an opportunity to play on a artificial surface, but not being in a gym for 2, 3, 4 weeks to start their season. So just thinking about our students and how we can enhance there, because spring sports are so short, and then how do we enhance that for them so then they're ready to safely play their activities once they start. We also have great relationships with many youth soccer organizations, many youth baseball, youth lacrosse, youth softball, and if I missed one, I do apologize, but how do we partner with them, because those are our kids too, to provide this opportunity to them to be able to do. And then in the fall, our in-season Tech and Apollo soccer teams and football teams and anyone else who'd want to use it on rainy days or when it gets cold, and anyone else in the community. For at Apollo, we were renting our turf surface to a local team that had made the state tournament because they wanted to do that. So just take and think about that and the opportunities that we could do and beyond. This is just a conceptual drawing of what it looks on the top. I think the most important thing is that it would be a full soccer field, so you could play a soccer game inside year-round. It also can be turned into 2 softball fields, so you could play our Crush softball, could have 2 weeks of practice and play a game and know that that game's happening, but also thinking about other communities when our kids aren't using it could also look at doing that as well. And it's just very faint lines of what those different things may look like. The other thing I do want to point out, I made mention of golf for our Crush spring sports, and then thinking about big picture community ed and beyond. This proposal does have right here, it'd be an entrance, there's a lobby, there's obviously restrooms, there's team rooms, so if there is a game there, so if we have our kids playing soccer, whatever it may be and beyond, but then also for golf simulators. So our golf teams would have a place to practice, not hitting into nets or in a gym for the first 4 to 6 weeks, but having some opportunities to do that. And then storage would be a large storage area, because if we're bringing in different activities, if we're bringing in the baseball team and then flipping over to lacrosse, that's a lot of nets, that's a lot of cages, that's a lot of things that we were warned as people do these types of things. Sometimes they don't think about, you just don't want stuff everywhere. You want it to be clean and taken care of. And then there's a 2-lane walking track around the exterior that could be utilized for teams and for folks, but also said it's just nice for community when you have a youth event there and families, parents, it's just you can have that opportunity as well. Again, this is what the lines could look like. Soccer, softball, lacrosse, football, and just the ability to have those fully on there. It is not a full length football field, but it would be a full width. So if Apollo or Tech wanted to practice there, they could use that as beneficial practice time for either team. And then just kind of bringing this all together. As you know, looking at this, we have the 3-court wood gym at Apollo. Tech has a 3-court wood gym, and then they have a 4th wood auxiliary gym, which has a great purpose. At Apollo, we would be looking at our storm shelter, since it's slightly different, to be a synthetic floor. So on that synthetic floor, you could have Phi Ed in there, but you could also, our adaptive athletics could play there and play their games there and have that true home court if we want to do that. We could play tennis there, and that would be that was the last crush team in the spring is thinking about our boys tennis teams that would have an opportunity to have some indoor practices and an indoor court there. You can do different types of performance. Dance could potentially do there, but you could do basketball. Pickleball, we could open, that could be used as well, because we would talk about having a separate entrance to that area, so it could be pickleball on that synthetic floor. The wood floors, I didn't want to forget about PE, basketball, volleyball, all the things that we do, dance, wrestling practice and performance. And this could also host wrestling as well. Typically schools have wrestling rooms, but it could be in gymnastics as well. The turf field, thinking it'd be PE, soccer, football, softball, baseball, lacrosse, the walking, as I mentioned, and then the golf. So thinking about our students and opportunities, we just wanted to look at how do we maximize, and this is for all 742 students. And that's why we really wanted to highlight the point of that 742 multipurpose facility. This is for our kids. This is also for our community. And we truly believe it would be used, and our community would benefit from adding this. And if we're talking about the where, I mentioned the previous slide, why are we adding this field over here? Because we would, as far as parking and exposure, thinking about where we could have it, currently we're that first field next to the pond. It would fit on this footprint. So if you see this, this space right here, you'd be driving it by here. We could brand it for our district so people are seeing it, people can access it. And then also just, it's far enough away from the school, depending on, it's not right on. I've been to facilities like this that are in such close proximity. This is a little breathing room between where the school is, and then parking would be that shared, that the parking lot's being, that south lot that's being redone this summer would be in proximity to that.
So now that you've seen, oh, that looks funny. Thank you. Now that you've seen the proposed conceptual designs, I want to recap our administrative recommendations. We propose asking 2 questions of taxpayers for the Apollo facilities. Question 1, providing security and learning updates must be approved before voters could pass question 2. So a 1, 2, where 2 can only pass if 1 does. The total of both questions is $65 million. And now let's talk about total tax impact, a question that I'm sure is on many people's minds at this time. When discussing tax impact, I just want to put this in context. When we talk about tax impact, the norm, not just for us, but school districts, cities, other public entities, is to tie the impact to the average home cost in the area. For our school district, that average home cost is closest to $250,000. And so we are going to anchor our discussion to that data point since it's the closest. However, a tax impact for various home values are shown here. And this will be public. So if people listening from home can't see, because it is small, you will have access to that. But I'll say it out loud, just in case it's a good starting place for now. So for a $250,000 home, the total annual impact for both questions, 1 and 2, would be $39.96. So for the entire year, $39.96. That equates to $3.33 a month. When we break it down and look at tax impact for each question, question 1's tax impact is $28.95 a year, or $2.41 a month. And for question 2, it's $11.01 per year, which is 92 cents each month. And we know that this community values its students, who will be our future workforce. We are coming to taxpayers asking for an increased investment in local education. However, we would also like to point out that the portion of school taxes paid on that $250,000 home is still lower than all of our neighboring districts. And that fact will hold true even if or when our community supports questions 1 and 2. So even with both questions passing, the school portion of our taxes will still be the lowest in this region. Another important question people will be asking is, well, when? When are you going to bring this forward? Administration recommends April 8th as the election date for the referendum. As you'll see, this construction schedule outlines a multi-year plan for improvements at Apollo High School, contingent on the success of the April 8 referendum, so it's built off that date. The timeline shows a structured sequence from planning to construction, with full completion targeted for summer 2028. As a school district, we are committed to transparency and open communication, and to meet that commitment, we want to ensure all of our voters have access to polling places, so we plan to have our polling place locations open for voters. Our district is deeply committed to preparing every student for success beyond high school. Through accelerated learning, bilingual certifications, college credit opportunities, and a rigorous commitment to core instruction, we ensure our students are not only ready for graduation, but also for the world that awaits them. To make this vision possible, we need facilities to meet the demands of preparing our future-ready students. We saw the incredible opportunities the new Tech High School offers, and now we are asking for your support to provide similarly for our Northside students. Together, we are creating pathways for lifelong success and helping each student realize their fullest potential. Thank you, and we welcome questions from the board.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments at all? Okay, go ahead, Boningo.
So why don't we have a print shop?
I can answer this. We do. It's been relocated, and it's just with the changes in technology, the amount of space that was needed. It's in a different location, but the district does still have a print shop that meets our printing needs. It's in this, right down the hall now, so.
Cool. So it's an antique now. Uh-huh. So. Workforce demands doesn't, okay, yeah, cool. So we don't need a printing shop anymore, okay. We have a big one there, right? That is close. Okay, got it, I'm gonna get that. I love what you have done about the students that you showed, all the great advantages for the students. There are a lot of things here that I actually miss from presentations that we had from the school presentations and the way that we talk about it at schools. So I really love the way that you did that in this presentation. I wanted to encourage our presenters and the principals and everybody to continue to talk that way about our students. I was noticing that in the concentrators explanation, Latino students and Asian students get 100% graduation rates. And I was so proud of seeing that. I also love the way that you talk about the shelter, because before I was hearing the shelter as, this is code, darn, now we have to build a shelter. But the code is there for a reason, right? So I think that we need to continue to talk about that. Well, it is code, and since 50 years ago, we have not had this, and our children are in danger. Something happens, we don't have a shelter. So that I think that needs to be continue to be driven more into that part. And what was the other thing? I love the explanation of meeting student needs. Just wondering, this took a little bit of time to drive all this presentation. And I don't really want to run ahead about how the communication plan is going to be, but anything that you can anticipate about, I don't know, the elevator speech about this?
I think much like our needs haven't, what we said back in 2015 and 2016, right, about the needs for this facility hold true, right? Safety and security, academic excellence, preparing the workforce of this community's future, and fiscal responsibility.
Thank you so much.
Quick question and a comment. Title IX, I noticed when you were talking about a field house, we talked about there's room for 2 softball fields, but there isn't any baseball fields striped in there, correct? So it'd be creating 2 additional women's softball fields, but no additional male baseball fields. Is there any concerns with that?
So traditionally, and I may be incorrect, but I'm not familiar with the size of a baseball field of any high school indoor baseball facilities in Minnesota. I know that we always want to be in compliance with Title IX, and we've been very diligent to do so with all of our fields. So I think that's a conversation in this planning process and talking about that we absolutely would want to have. So appreciate that, but
that certainly is a good question. The reality is putting the size of a baseball field makes it very, very difficult, which I would just promote that the city should be talking about a turf field at the MAC, to be honest, because that would solve the problem. At St. Cloud State University, for instance, they're actually moving permanently their softball field to Husky Stadium. It still allows for, in a huge way, baseball to be able to practice. They can take full hit.
Well, I'm not advocating for enlarging it to be a indoor baseball facility. But I'm just wondering if the creation of the 2 fields creates a Title IX concern. Maybe you just wouldn't put the softball fields, stripe the fields,
Right.
but it would be available for baseball and softball practices.
I think it depends. I mean, certainly you could play a full game on the softball field, and that does create an inequity, so to speak. I think that as part of this is a conversation with the city, which is one of my questions about the commitment of the community. There needs to be a turf field that's installed at the MAC to create equal opportunity for men and women in this community.
Second was just a comment, and I know I brought it up, I think over email to you, Lori, but as this would move forward towards a referendum date, just securing the advocacy, the partnerships, and the support of all of the youth, soccer, football, lacrosse, any youth leagues within the area to get the support there, because I think it would be a really important facility for them also, for off hours or not, right, but they could really help in the effort.
Can you start with the collaboration spaces? I know that is a huge trend in what we're doing in education. Obviously, that is something that was built into tech. What has been our experience with collaboration spaces as it impacts, I'll call it conduct, integration? How do students use it positively? Do we see any issues with collaboration spaces because they're generally less controlled?
It's so funny that you asked that. I was just at Tech High School today. I was doing some supervision, just walking the halls. And to your point, I had a group of students that were sitting, collaborating, talking about what was taking place in language arts, right? They were doing a project. You had some students that were in the group that walked away. You have folks out and they have a table tent. Here's the expectations. And it's just teaching kids just the real life skills, right? If I'm gonna have a job, I'm gonna have to learn how to work in a team. I'm gonna have to learn how to work together for the students to prepare them for some of the future-ready learning things that we just saw, right? On how to collaborate and work together. The other piece for the teachers is the same thing, right? In practice. If we are both teaching a math class and I can go in the collaborative space and talk about practice, it only helps us. It also helps where I'm now removed from the classroom environment where I'm in an adult space because I'm around kids all day. And so when we hear it from teachers it's that release to us to be ourselves. I'm not always on in front of a group of students. And so it continues to help our teachers on their collaborative spaces and then the students as well around the learning. And so today I just got the chance to see it in a practical sense where our kids were doing it. Kids that went away, we're like, where are you supposed to be? Here are the expectations. So, and it's just preparing them for our future.
Thank you. As it relates to question 2, and I think it's a need that this community has had for a long time that we've not been able to address. A couple things there. I believe the $15 million is all directed to facilities construction. What is the plan around operational dollars available to run and program the facility to the best use of the community?
Yeah, I will talk about rental from community ed perspective, but then if you want to talk about the efficiency of the structure and the design, we don't charge much, but we certainly are able to cover operating costs for our gym rentals, right? If we hire door monitors, the engineers or the custodians who stay, the electrical, right? We build that into the rental cost. And, we're not looking to make money off our taxpayers, but we are looking to cover those costs. And we've been highly successful. You heard Justin talk about renting out the turf fields, the multi-purpose fields, right? And that happens at both Tech and Apollo. It happens with our tennis courts. Every time we make improvements to our grounds or our facilities, we see increased demand, not only paid demand, not only from our local community, but from communities from all across the state. And this is a highly efficient structure. Will you talk a little bit about that, Justin?
Yes, and so David Leopold and I have talked about this quite a bit. From an efficiency standpoint, it's designed to be very energy efficient. They are, in full disclosure, this structure is currently being built in Rogers. So this is something that's in the area. It's manufactured very locally. So it's something that there's familiarity with it in the area. I think what's important to know is that $15 million, once it's built, that includes, so it's built on a cement base, and then you build the rooms around it, which I alluded to, where the entrance and welcome area would be, the team rooms, et cetera. And speaking with our business director, the turf itself could then be tied into our long-term facility maintenance plan, and that's in an average of about 10 years. So that wouldn't be an additional cost. The unique thing about this structure is as it's built with steel, and then it has the shell that's put around it. That shell could also be put into our long-term facility maintenance plan for the future. It's got it's warranted for 25 years, but expected to be right around that 30-year mark. So as we're planning and creating that 10-year plan, the two most expensive pieces that we could then include in long-term facility maintenance. And then as we go through, the infrastructure piece and the rental, we have experience with that when you go around to our gyms in the winter and being utilized by those organizations. It's just getting those cost analysis of what it is to run into staff, and then what it would after our students are done using it, what it looks like to then, look to break even on those costs.
And I don't even know if this is legal, but can I suggest that if there is a way that this will be, I believe, a facility that will have great interest, and that there are going rates, so to speak, for turf rental and that sort of thing. We know that we are often shorting our own students for activities, whether that's bus transportation, whether that's just access to uniforms and everything else. I'm not insinuating that we should gouge people, but if we are charging the going rate and revenues from that can be reinvested into activities programs, it would make a heck of a lot of sense for us to be thoughtful and be doing that. I'm happy that you've thought about replacement. Turf replacement is about 10 years. You would want not to have to come up with the extra $1 million or whatever it is for that replacement. But I think that there is some really business savvy sorts of thinking that we might want to do that would supplement, and I know our cross subsidy prevents us in many cases from being able to support our students in activities the way that we would like to. This actually could be a solution to that we might want to look at. Justin, in terms of storage solutions, whatever you have, get more. Because when you think about the number of sports you mentioned that would play out of that area, there will continue to be innovations into how many nets and golf, whatever, if you want any sort of seating that people could use, bleachers, that sort of thing. Ultimately, for safety purposes, you do want those things out of the way when you have people doing open sorts of things. So again, something to think about. And then the last thing, just for question, which I did like your question about baseball, because I'd like to leverage that to say, if this is a community effort, if the district is putting this as part of what they're doing, it does make sense to try and leverage the city and the community to think about how we also serve baseball students, particularly given how popular baseball is in this community. But I guess my question or just suggestion is, what is the commitment of the community in promoting this? Because I think it was brought through the Community Advisory Council. I think there need to be solid plans about how they're promoting this and they're becoming part of the solution. And as was mentioned, whether it's CMYSA, whether it's some of the youth football, youth lacrosse leagues that are starting, there is such an opportunity to engage them and actually build that into part of the planning. And then also think about whether or not some of those groups could help you, because I do think staffing can get really hard, not just financially, to find people to do it. Is there a mechanism, a shared partnership, private-public essentially, that could help in thinking about how you can staff and engage and provide access to this in the evenings and weekends that doesn't only tax the district? So, thank you.
Yeah, actually, I understood my writing and had one question that I missed. Is the multipurpose facility going to have a room for seating for spectators?
So typically that area around the track right in front of it would be wide enough where people would. In a facility like that, you typically, if you had bleachers, they'd be very small. You want to utilize the space for the students. So my experience in going to a place like that, it would be parents know and bring your lawn chair. It's communicated that it's not, you aren't taking up that space with bleachers. So there wouldn't be huge seating sections. There would be seating off, and that's conversations. As everything we've talked about, we're bringing this to you tonight and feedback, and then we'll take that, because there was a question, should we talk about a concession stand or not? Those are things that we want to get people's feedback on that it could have but doesn't need to, and I think things like you just mentioned are great points that we need to think about.
And I like the idea of having those conversations coming further and also including them within the design. So things that are not going to be done right now, but that could be done in the future, and there is space for it. The other question that I just came out to me right now was, how does the funding happens having question, and this is most for Amy, question 1 and question 2. So if we have question 1 and question 2 and then let's say both pass, and we're one is going over contingency and the other is going lower, can we cross money from those or no, or how does that work?
So you really can do it either way. So nothing gets moved forward in terms of an actual bond issuance unless or until there's an approved vote. And so typically, depending on timing and bond rates at the time, our financial advisors will give us recommendations. Sometimes you will see multiple issuances depending on issuance costs and the market for tax exempt government bonds. Sometimes it's more advantageous to issue two different issuances, one to start kind of phase one, particularly in a project like this, where we have multiple years of construction. If rates don't drop considerably, districts are seeing arbitrage right now where they're paying too much, they're getting too much interest and they're having to pay it back. And so sometimes it makes sense financially to do one issuance now and wait a year and do a second issuance so you're not paying interest for that year. So there's really multiple ways to do it. You can split that into two separate bonds. Legally, you can do it either way. So there's nothing legally that says that the proceeds from question one have to be separated from the proceeds or an issuance on question two. It really just comes down to the financial environment when the time comes.
And a follow-up, if we pass question one and question two, we have a commitment to do the one thing and the second thing, right? So would we start doing the construction and everything of the everything at the same time? Or just wondering if people are going to start seeing that there is a high school in construction and there is not any other thing there.
I think one thing that really wasn't mentioned and should have been that with this being a renovation and not a new school being built, we have no intention of disrupting learning. If this were to pass, we want to make sure our kids are in school. I mean, we've been through a fire, we've been through 22, we know how to do it, but it would not be, we would have our kids there every day, regular school day. In talking with the different it really comes down to permits and when to do things. They are working with a construction management company, and our architect said on a project like this, it takes about a year for the multi-purpose, and they can work on it all winter. So they actually prefer, to start it. If they can get it, everything down in an appropriate amount of time, then they can work on it all winter and try to get it done in less than a year. But really, he said, we asked those same questions, and Amy said, really, when it passes, the money comes fairly quickly. Then they have to get permits. And then they just look at how not to disrupt Apollo High School and anything that's going on. Like, we would be driving dangerous equipment through, so we need kids out of this space. So we would want to, as you see on Dr. Putnam's timeline, the majority of the work is summer work because they can do more, but there would be things that would be happening the duration of those couple years.
I was quite impressed with the comparison between our district and the surrounding districts on debt. I mean, we've been managing our debt just great. I am wondering about how long these bonds are going to run. I mean, if we're looking at the $39 a year, but is it forever? Or is it $39 that's going to end in 20 years? And
So school building bonds are typically set up over a 20-year bond. And so that's what this is set up. And then we've been intentional as we've looked at that long-term debt picture, that over the course of the 20 years, there's still some drop-offs in our overall debt. Just being mindful of the fact that selling a story that this is the only facility need we're going to have in 20 years is probably not realistic or accurate. And so that has been factored in. And so there's 3 different points over that 20-year period where there's still some drops and the payments kind of taper off over time to be mindful of balancing that immediate need with future needs.
thank you.
Can you go back to the slide? To the slide that shows the overhead view of the one with specifically to the multi-purpose, to the field house. But keep going. I want the one that shows the parking lots and everything. Yeah, right. And that's fine. I was looking for the one that has the field house positioned over that field, but there. That's hugely different, isn't it? My question is to Amy, and it has to do with, so we're, this summer, next summer, we are using LTFM, it's planned, or it's already coming up for bid fairly soon. We're looking at replacing the parking lot over by the pond, and then wrapping around the back of the school, and that parking lot right there that you're circling that nobody uses for anything. And I'm wondering with LTFM dollars, I know we can't put in a new parking lot with LTFM dollars, but we can replace an existing parking lot. I'm wondering if when we talk replace, do they go by square footage replacement? Or do they go by, it has to have the exact same boundaries when you're replacing? Because we would have an opportunity. I still look at that parking lot on the south end and say, boy, it would be nice if that could be extended about 40 feet down towards that facility for parking. And we've got this parking lot behind there, other than the ambulance bay, it really doesn't get used for anything. The one behind the school is most of the time empty. Is there any way that we could like convert that square footage over to that end, the south end, and still use LTFM?
It does not go by square footage. You're supposed to, if it's currently paved, it can remain paved. We've had a little bit of flexibility with some of the bus chute and the north lot, just because of new drainage requirements. And so sometimes as they're drawing out the plan and the amount of drainage and culverts and things that are needed, sometimes in order to accomplish that, you have to like slightly change the configuration. So we were able to do a little bit of tweaking, kind of in that gray area that is still allowable. But you can't say, well, I had, X number of square feet and I'm going to put it over here instead of over here. That would be explicitly unallowed.
Is there any specific requirements for replacement there with our trout pond right next to it?
I don't think that there's anything specific. In the initial engineering, they've already kind of worked on that initial estimate and nothing came up. My initial thought is because there's enough room on other sides of it for drainage, that they're not concerned about that, and it's not like when we had Tech where it was a protected trout stream. It's not having like the DNR restrictions like we ran into at Tech. And so I haven't heard anything from them that has any concerns with that.
So if you want a bigger parking lot, you could use LTFM funds for the part that you're already there, but then you'd have to throw in extra money for a bigger one.
Yep.
What's our next step then? Are we?
So the next step is that we will bring you the resolution, the exact resolution, November 20th for you to vote on. And then we would move forward with planning from there.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have the 2025 Board of Education Legislative Platform presented tonight by Board Member and Legislative Chair Zach Dorholt.
Am I supposed to talk now?
Yeah.
As you know, this is just a draft, which has primarily continued to make our annual ask to fund the cross subsidy. And although Minnesota's made progress, still, we got a lot left to do. And thankfully, as the years go by, it's on more and more people's radar and more districts are struggling with this, so we're not quite as alone as we may have been in the past. And thanks to current and previous board members, it's now definitely a statewide awareness. I don't have the updated numbers in there in this one yet. So that primary part hasn't changed. I think that kind of what we were feeling overall. That still is one of our biggest, if not our biggest primary financial struggle. Right? So that's number one. Number two is the OLA report that we like to see updated. Something Al Dahlgren's been working on, and most of this here is through some of the MSBA resolutions that were made. And as we've had this conversation a little bit before, in 2008, the Office of the Legislative Auditor found out through that report that charter schools, well, we need some updated numbers. Back then they had recommendations, none of them were made. And I think it's only fair, we think it's fair to know the impact of charter schools on our districts. And then number three, and I don't think we're alone in this either, is using the MCA tests to no longer rank the quality of schools. This is something year after year, everybody in this room understands, teachers understand, I think most parents understand, yet the people who report on this use it, as I would say, nothing other than clickbait anymore. It is not representative of the students or the teachers. It's representative of how they do on certain tests on a certain day. It is a poor reflection of any district on how the quality of their schools really are. You don't get to see that through test scores. And again, kind of reflecting some of the MSBA proposed resolutions in there and adding, this is not new, because a former board member had kind of made some efforts on this in the past, including whether letters to the editor and other formal discussions. That's a brief synopsis there. I didn't want to read it word for word. And of course, this not fine-tuned for language yet. The I would be looking for suggestions to, do we stick with these three? Do we just do one, two? I am very comfortable moving forward with these three. I think we're in a good position to do this. And again, we're not alone in this stuff as a district as much as we may have been in the past.
So we approve it, and then what do we do with it?
Good question. We formally give this to our representatives down in St. Paul, so anybody who has any population in the school district. So I want to say that's like 5 House members and 3 senators, at least 2 senators, 3 senators and at least 5 House members. And the media does pick up on this too. They report on this. So it is a semi-formal ask to those in St. Paul to do something with us, for us.
How do we go about lobbying down there?
You go down and schedule a time to meet with your representative, or you just ask him out for coffee or give him a call. You'd be surprised at how many representatives, House members, and senators, it's easy to just have a phone call with them. We have invited them to our meetings here before. It can be as formal as we want, as little formal as we want. Bottom line is going to be hand-delivered one way or another. And if one of them is willing and able to author a bill or sign on some others, that's even a double bonus. And we've had some do that over the past decade or so.
Is there any difficulty with bipartisanship?
I don't think so. Again, this is something, it touches, every school district now has these shared issues, metro, rural, regional centers. And we have a bipartisan representation in our school district, which creates a lot of good opportunity.
When I look at that third one, I like what's on there because it's all true. I mean, it's very true, but it's very school focused, and I realize this is a school board. It's coming from the school board going to the legislators. However, I think there should be some pieces in there about how the improper reporting of, however we want to call it, but the improper reporting of MCA scores as a report card on a school district has a very degrading result for communities, not just school districts. I mean, it's not all about we don't like this because we don't compare good. It degrades the community. It causes property values to drop. It causes students to move out of the school district and open enroll into other school districts for no reason, by the way. The educational outcomes and the product of education within the school district can be equal among the two, but the community that has the lower average income is going to likely have lower test scores, and it's just going to throw some fuel on the fire for people to say, see, I told you, look at the test scores. This is really bad. We got to get out of here. And it's a cycle that gains momentum. It starts really slow and it starts to pick up steam and it gains momentum, and then it becomes very much an issue of segregation within schools too. You see a lot of students of color don't open enroll into the outlying, but anyone who has the means to do so within an area will open enroll their students out. So it becomes a real community issue as much as it is a school issue. And the legislature has a duty to do something about that. They can't just sit on their hands and say, gosh, we can't do anything about it. It's, get your test scores up. It's just not that simple.
I was just going to add on number 3, I agree with all 3 of them. On number 3, my one question is there a need to either provide or request that there is an alternative? I don't think we want to send the message that we don't want accountability, but can we modernize what accountability looks like that isn't dependent upon a single test score? And so again, we're not just simply throwing it out there to say we don't want our schools to have to answer to anybody. We want to say we need to have a modern and effective way of evaluating and demonstrating progress or not that our schools are making, so that, to Al's point, we can celebrate the things that are happening, but we can also ensure the public that we're using their monies appropriately to advance what we're doing.
So I have been talking a lot lately about a need for us to develop an asset-based language to talk about our schools. And the thing is very hard because I haven't figured out how to do it myself. But I am really working on it and trying to think about how that could be. And what Lori did with the presentation for Apollo is a prime example of an asset-based language to refer to our schools. So, for example, so what I'm seeing right here, and I'm seeing it right now, so my apologies, Zach, thank you so much for all the work that you have done to this, not trying to diminish for anything the work, but we should probably avoid despite recent efforts, words like despite, recent efforts during the legislation to do that. When we talk about ELL students and when we talk about special education students, we are really, and if you pay attention to what we say.
Are you on number one?
Number one.
Oh.
Yeah. If you pay attention to what we said, we are referring to those students as a deficit. We are referring, if you look at it, you look at the first part of that, we're referring to those students as they cost more because they have greater needs. And I think that what we need to get to, and I want to call, I forgot your name in this second, Donna. What she was telling us before is that it's not that these students cost more, it's that the system is not designed for them. So what I wanted to pay attention to in those things is that the system is not designed for them, is that maybe we need to start thinking about what is the population of the state. And when we think about the population of the state, and we figured out that, I don't know what is the percentage of special education students that we have in our district. That is not a sign of a deficit in our district. That is a sign of an asset that we have. Those students are here for a reason. They came here because of those services. We have a state-of-the-art services for those students. And I'm pretty sure that we have more special education students here than what are in other around us. And I think that we need to capitalize for that. We have a really great special ed education system that is not being properly funded. And this is not a favor to St. Cloud, it's a favor to the state because it's an obligation of the state to educate those students. And that's why they did mandate it. Not the other way around as we're thinking about it. EL students is the same thing. We have more EL students in this district than in the districts around us. We have better systems to educate EL students than our districts around us. And we have done that despite the underfunding that we have for this district. So we need to convince everyone that this is not a favor to St. Cloud. We are the ones doing the favor to everyone around us because we have this, we have been exploring on this. So that's the one thing that I still don't know how to put here. I think that I need more data though, to maybe start framing it that way. In terms of what is the population that we have and why do we have these concentrations here? And we don't have this concentration here because we are the worst in the world. We have concentrations here because we have best programs, because we have best practices, and because we have the most resilient population that we could have. We are the only ones that went without cutting. We are so resilient that we didn't cut any programs and any funding when we passed COVID. Because we had been trained to these issues that we had, that we needed to figure out how to make ends meet with the low funding that we have. That has created resilience in this district, but it's not fair. So that's the message that I would like to drive with this and how we figure this out. And that's kind of what I've been trying to explain about how we talk about these students. We have special education students because they are beautiful. When I came to this country, and one of the first jobs that I had was to work with people that were Down syndrome. And people that were hiring me, they were concerned that the Down syndrome people were not going to understand me because I had a thick accent. And what my experience was, is that the uncle of my husband, who is Down syndrome, say hola to me when he says hi. I love the other ones too. The charter one I haven't really checked much more, but I was thinking in the same things about asset base in the third one. And I completely agree with Heather. What I was proposing is that we should not be asking to advocate the state to move away from MCA. We should say we as representatives and advocates of the state to develop a better system of evaluation that compares quality of schools with several points of, I don't know with what, but I think that is not to move away from NCA. What we want to ask is that they develop a better system of evaluation for the schools that serves as a base of as a fair base of comparison with districts that are very different, with the students that are very different. So, and then going a little bit more into what those, the things that you said there about the quality, I think that's perfect. I don't know if there is anything that we could provide in terms of giving ideas of how a better comparison system can be developed, or how do we evaluate, how can we rank with others. And I also think that it will not be too much to ask if the state start looking about how funding is, if they put a comparison in funding too, the funding that the schools receive and the scores that they get, I don't know if that is always equal. So that's kind of my comments.
I know you weren't speaking directly to me, Monica, but I just wanted to say that I agree with most of that. I have always been an advocate that, thank God our district does what it does, because if we didn't do that, there'd be an awful lot of people just left out in the cold. So it is a really important function that our district does that, and we take on way more than other school districts. And I know at our one-on-one, I gave Lori I sat down a couple weeks ago and I started writing out my thoughts on why District 742 has lower MCA test scores than other districts throughout the state, or than the average district around the state. And I came up with, was it 8 or 9 reasons? I can't remember. It's like 8 reasons that I can think of why we will have lower test scores on average lower test scores than the average district throughout the state. And it has a lot to do with, I know one of them was that we have a very high special education population. Why do we have a special education population that's higher? Because the community has phenomenal facilities for special education students. And so people who have a student who is disabled or severely disabled, they choose to locate within St. Cloud because of that. And our district provides an exceptional special education for their students. And so we know that special education students do not score at the same rate as students who have no disabilities that live out in the suburbs. And so we know, therefore, that the impact of having a higher special education population on our district is going to result in lower test scores. Does that mean that we have a crappy school district? No, it means we have an exceptional school district, and we're not getting the credit for it out of MCA scores. So I sat down and I had 9 different thoughts, and I couldn't list them off to you without going back and looking at what I wrote. But 9 different thoughts on why our MCA test scores would be lower than surrounding districts or than state averages. And in each one of those, as I listed what the cause was, I also listed why we experienced that cause. So what is it within our community that causes this? And I don't know. I don't know if you got a chance to read it or not, but I was kind of going at that same thing. I wasn't saying shame on the special ed kids for costing us more money and we don't get reimbursed for it. I was saying, hey, we've got phenomenal facilities and we do a phenomenal job. The state isn't funding us on this, and so why? So don't compare us on this. I mean, special ed kids are fully funded at the district level. They get, I mean, everything that's mandated is paid for because we have to do it. The funding comes from other areas within the district, but it's not a shot at special education or at EL students or any other group. I mean, we serve students at St. Cloud Hospital and students that are in alcohol and drug rehabilitation programs, and there's hundreds of reasons why we're going to be lower on MCA test scores. We need to recognize that. The state needs to come up with something to recognize that, and something needs to happen. So I'm agreeing with you.
So on that note, I think sounds like we would want to add as the ask for number 3 to incorporate, also asking to use a better system.
Yes.
I'll craft.
To use a system that takes into consideration demographic differences of districts and the impacts that would be expected on standardized test scores.
And also we could see, I mean, how long does it take us to graduate a new to country student? Because I don't know if that is the same for every school. I mean, I'm pretty sure that we are doing better. I mean, I would put my finger on it, that we're doing better than other schools in graduating a new to country student. Or what is that we call the students that life, or as life student. Those students are coming to our district for reasons. They're coming and they stay. I mean, those life students are the students that go from district to district, jumping from here to there, and they stay here because finally they found something.
Or I wouldn't say they're jumping district to district.
That's the definition of a life.
Well, it's also students who are new to country, who are at an advanced age, so they're at 7th grade age level when they come here, but they've never had any formal education. So that's the limited and.
Okay. Any other feedback or suggestions for Zach? Natalie?
We looked a little bit at the expansion of the Minnesota report card in our last committee meeting, or Donna made a mention of it anyway. And so, when I just glance at Minnesota report card and you put it Apollo, then right away, first it's MCA scores, right? And then it's attendance and a couple other things on the first page. And so I don't think we're going to get that picky here, but it's just like, it's that sort of a thing that's like Apollo, and then that's the first thing that your eye goes to instead of, and then if you really dig, oh, there's the IB and the AP scores, and oh, wow, look how that is compared to the state, but you really have to dig on the side part instead of just what everybody sees. And so it's again, like everybody's saying, it's not taking MCA scores away. That's still a reality, but a better way of that not just being it seems almost lazy, of like, here we go. This is the thing we've always done, so we're just always going to do it. So, yeah. Innovate, think outside the box, things like that. Yeah, really, the things we're teaching in St. Cloud schools, for instance. But I really like this platform, Zach. I really appreciate the three things that are on here are things we talk about all the time. And so I think it's really smart. So thanks for your work on it.
Anybody else? Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Zach. Love all three of them.
And I have to say, so much of this is really not my work. It's, it's an accumulation of things we've been doing for years, and what Al's been doing, a lot of that. So I cannot accept a majority of the credit on this at all.
1/7.
So then this is coming back one more time, right? All right. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have the schools update. We have Nikki Hansen, Assistant Superintendent of Pre-K through 5 Education, Dr. Jason Harris, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education, and Shannon Avison, Assistant Superintendent of E12 Education Services.
Yes, good evening, Chair Haas, Superintendent Putnam, and members of the board. Today, for our schools update for elementary, we get to celebrate Lincoln and Talahi, our 2 schools serving 1 community. Here on the left side, we see safety represented. You will see a spontaneous dance party in the hallway on Unity Day there at Talahi. And on the right side, you will see some refined dismissal procedures where we work to restructure the bus chute and buses coming in and out, as well as our students exiting safely and entering safely each day. And for belonging, you will see Talahi, how they start their day each day with morning announcements led by students. Highlights that include the Talahi Pledge and student shoutouts and the good news call of the day. That good news call of the day is made by administrators celebrating students for their positive efforts around school. And then they take a picture each day in this beautiful frame and post it on Instagram. So celebrating the good news and the good efforts of our scholars. On the right side, you see Lincoln students engaging in student jobs that we saw last year at the board meeting continuing, building that responsibility and pride in students and the school community. There are some baristas there in the morning. Then we see collaboration here on the left side. You see Talahi during Connections conferences here that we had entering the school year. They rolled out the red carpet for students and families. And you see some of the wonderful Talahi staff surrounding that, welcoming those new students confidently as they enter into Talahi. On the right side, you see some staff members engaging in collaboration around implementation of tiered reading strategies and progress monitoring, and a group of teachers looking at that data and setting the intention of what is next in instruction based on student data needs. Here we see high expectations and high supports showing excellence. You see Mr. Blake's 2nd grade classroom there at Talahi, and each week at Talahi, students earn golden awards for respect, responsibility, and safety in the lunchroom and at specials. And there you can see the specials award being awarded that week to Mr. Blake's 2nd grade class. On the right side, you see students from Lincoln engaging in math talks as a warm-up for a math lesson. The teacher will pose challenging questions and supports through collaboration with peers and clarifies one-on-one with students to start that math lesson for the day.
All right, at the secondary high school, I'm just going to share, this was the joy for me this week, just of putting pictures together, getting ready for this, to the points of test scores don't really show how our students are learning. To Monica, to your point of why kids stay, you have Tech High School, their staff just working on how to build community, talking about how do we service our kids, what do we need to do to really create that environment where kids want to be and their families and that belonging around that. And so when I put this together, it was like, I can't get all the pictures on here, let me just pick the quick ones. And so this was just a quick one where staff is working together to try to build that community around safety. Then you have a sense of belonging. Our students got a chance to take part in voting 2024. They participated in Minnesota K-12 mock elections, that belonging piece of hearing their voice, them getting a part to do their civic duty within their peers in their community. You had it right here just yesterday. And then the Future 100 event, where we collaborated with all our community partners, higher ed, our military folks, and the local workforce to make sure we're having a plan for all our seniors when they leave us, that they have a solid plan. We had some great things happen. Over 200 students filled out college applications just around that. I think Superintendent Putnam's done a great job of really working with our local community to really engage. And so this event was really big on the 21st at Tech High School. And then just high expectations with our students, our coaching staff, really pushing our student athletes. We just wrapped up a fall season, and you had a lot of good things taking place. I'm going to go to the one outside of sports where the student here, Jacob, got a 36 on the ACT. That's a perfect score. You had boys and girls soccer competed state. You had tennis, track and field, and then Minnesota all-state team volleyball. So kids just really taking part in the experiences, and it's really preparing them for our future.
All right, I'm going to second that, Jason. That Future 100 was being at Apollo and Tech. I didn't highlight it because I knew you would be, but being able to be there with the students and filling out college applications was seriously the highlight of my last couple of weeks, and it was amazing how much we were able to accomplish in that time with the kiddos. So just a wonderful event. Obviously, and parts of E12 Educational Services, I get the privilege of working with special education, obviously, working with our student services team and also our nursing staff. And so I'm highlighting safety-wise, our student services coordinator, Laurel Schulberg, is now providing reframing behaviors and de-escalation strategies for all new staff that we hire coming in at orientation. And the feedback on that has just been exceptional. If you've heard of crisis prevention, intervention, and verbal strategies, it's really about reframing adult mindsets and being able to respond to students and understanding their brain states, and just giving some really key strategies for helping our adults respond and support students, and not only prevent escalation, but provide some opportunities and strategies for de-escalation. Belonging, this one I just loved, and I didn't even ask for these photos. I get the privilege, and my team just sends me these awesome pictures throughout the day, and so that's fun. So Belonging, this is Catherine Johnson Education Center, has some of our level 4 programming and in-step programming, and this is how they showed up to welcome students on Halloween. So I just thought that was fun. Collaboration, our other student services coordinator, Jen Lisi, is really intentional about mental health professional development, and for all those staff like school psychologists, social workers, mental health advocates, et cetera, and being really intentional about providing a specific professional development that those teams need and request. And so a great collaboration once again with St. Cloud State University to offer ethics training, which is part of their requirement for their licensure on our last professional development day. And then High Expectations, one more of our programs. Again, they sent me some really good ones too. This one was the one that I could show you. They're a fun team. But our CAP program, Community Accountability and Prevention, that's our 2 to 5 day programming. It's really an alternative to suspension. And that team is providing social, emotional, academic support. They're really helping our students in grades 6 through 11 process any kind of office discipline referrals, or what they're over. Their processing is really about what they can do differently to improve their behaviors in school, to improve their academics. This is just an incredible team, and it has licensed teachers, including special education teacher on that team, mental health advocates, and behavior resource specialists. And they just do just an outstanding job, and they're just a delight to work with.
Okay, thank you guys. Monica?
So hearing that much about belonging and belonging and belonging, I think that I warned you that I was going to ask this. What do you do for belonging of staff?
Actually, one of our team's goals this year for special education, our team goal is about retention of staff. We do get a lot of new staff in special education and a lot of teachers who really did not go to school to be a special education teacher. So we get out of field placements, tier ones, and it's really about supporting those staff to learn all those pieces and those nuances of being a special education teacher. But our goal is 100% around that support. So things that we're doing, we have due process nights that are optional for those staff to come in and get support from some of our due process coaches on some of those paperwork pieces. New Teacher Academy is another thing that we have in that mentorship program for staff. And on Tuesdays, our teams are out supporting new teachers with just following up on professional development pieces that we've had. So there's some real intentionality about supporting especially those year 1, 2, and 3 teachers.
And then specifically for Jason and I, we get to work with our principals at the buildings at elementary and secondary levels. And within their continuous improvement structures, in addition to focusing on the strategic plan, they have also focused on Superintendent Putnam's vision with these 4 pillars. So within our intentional planning each month, when we get together, we model belonging, we model safety, collaborations, and excellence through high expectations and high supports. And then we share and collaborate together on those great experiences and opportunities that build that within our school systems.
Okay. Last up, we have a couple policy readings. Both first readings presented by Gary Yanji, Executive Director of Special Projects. First up, we have Policy 606, Proposed Revised Board Policy 606, Textbooks and Instructional Materials.
Good evening. Shannon's going to drive for me, so.
I'm going to try.
Just pause for a second, no pressure. All right. Great. Well, good evening. If you recall, back in May and June, we took a look at Policy 606.5, and at the time, we talked about that it was being broken off of Policy 606, which we're bringing to you this evening. But incidentally, as you'll see on your agenda, we're also bringing 606.5 back for just a couple more modifications on that. So what we have here is, now we're just talking about textbooks and instructional materials and not library books, because that resides in 606.5. A lot of the changes that you see tonight have to do with our renaming of positions and departments in the district. So these are minor changes just to align by the way we do business today. And you'll see that teaching and learning throughout this is being replaced with E12 education. If you look under Roman numeral 3 down to B, we had our legal counsel do a review, and they noticed that between our procedures and our policy, we were calling selection criteria 2 different things, so we're aligning that. Down to, I want to point out B3, that what's in yellow along with cultural should have a strike through. We missed the strike through on that when we prepared this. When we bring it back for second reading, we'll make sure to have it in there. That strike through came through the Board Development Committee. There is a bit of discussion on that, and it was related to by talking about different types of diversity. The fear was that something would be left out, and I think the example that was given during that was what about economic? And so after some discussion, Board Development decided let's just talk about diversity and varied opinion. So that's what that change is. Down to 3C, again, it's just the title of the learning and teaching. it's interesting, historically, we've had learning and teaching and learning. I think we found both in here as we were going through. Down to Roman numeral 4B. That was also added during board development, from available resources. There's a bit of a discussion on, there's really a small amount, a finite number of publishers that meet the state standards. And board development felt it important that we put that in there. Roman numeral 5, we don't charge a lot of fees, but we do have a few out there, and after some discussion, this was in the model policies. We didn't have it before. We brought it back in there. Roman numeral 6, 6A. So a recommendation from our legal counsel was that we drop interested persons and replace it with parents or guardians of a district student or a district student who is 18 years of age or older. And the reason for that recommendation is that's how the statute reads. And so that change was made. We added the reference to the statute in there so that, in the future, we know why it's in there. And we also discussed that doesn't preclude someone who isn't a parent or guardian or a student of 18 years of age or older to express concerns about textbooks and instructional materials. I think it's Policy 206 that for public input, public comment at school board meetings, that doesn't preclude that. It's just going through the challenge process. And then down in the Roman numeral, the parentheses at the end of A, that's just pointing out that if someone's looking for 606.5, it's no longer here, there's a note. I'm guessing the next time this comes before the board, that would be able to be removed. B is just cleaning up that language that we talked about above. And then for C, that's new. Along with this policy, we have an administrative procedure. And for a number of our policies, we have administrative procedures, which typically reside in an administrative handbook. Because the challenge process is very specific, it was the recommendation that school districts add this to their policy and attach the administrative procedures. So this is just a paragraph directing that the superintendent will present the administrative procedures and it will be attached to this. And if you turn the page, this is the presentation of those. Again, a lot of this was cleaning up language. Legal reviewed this. There were things like in some spots we called our building leaders building principals, and others we called them building leaders, and others building administrator. In other areas we called them principals, and we just tried to be consistent throughout. There's some punctuation that's being corrected. I'm over to number 4, Shannon. I should let you know. Okay, good. All right. Just some cleanup of some language there. When again we have the what we call a building leader, we're making that consistent. Again, the titles, but also in here, legal pointed out that within our within the challenge process, we have an informal and a formal. Some of the individuals that we had named or the positions were the same on the informal and the formal. And the recommendation there was that we don't do that because it really isn't fair for the appeal process if it's the same people making the same judgment at the same time. So that's what a lot of that editing is. We had a number of references to like 15 days and 10 days. We added school days just because 10 days or 15 days around a holiday break, that cuts us pretty short. The membership, we cleaned that up a little bit. We cleaned up the policy because we don't have a 606A. And then we added another layer of an appeal process. The appeal after it goes from informal to formal, the appeal can go to the superintendent, and then there could be an appeal to the school board too. And then the remaining are just forms that go along with that process, with one edit in there on the very last page, and it's that aligning language with the selection criteria. Questions?
Gary, on that change to school days
Yes.
from days, should that be maybe be in-service days? Staff in-service days or and I'm thinking of an appeal that might happen during the summer when we're off school for 90 days. Would we wait for to the start of the school year? Would that appeal process be handled by someone who's working? So it's in service.
Good question. How about we wrestle with that and bring it back on second reading? Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, and the next one, 606.
Yeah, 606.5. You probably know this one by heart now. This will be the fourth time we're going through it. Some really minor changes. We will go to, let's go to Roman numeral 6, Shannon. D1. You there? Okay. We had this updated to our PK, labeling it PK5, but since then we've changed it to E5. So this reflects that. Down to 3, still within D. We've struck public librarian. That's often for smaller school districts that don't have a lot of media specialists. We have 10, and I think probably have another 5 folks that have media license, so we can do that. But it's important to note that the superintendent always has the discretion of deciding who's on this review committee. It could, he or she could appoint a public librarian, an academic librarian, so that could still happen. Within the legal standards, this is new legislation, so it's been added, and this is around the banning of books. And I want to point out that, when the word, I'll speak personally, when I hear the word ban, it kind of raises a flag. But as you read through this and you get down to the details in it, this is the way that not only us, but many school districts have operated for years, that sometimes a book ends up in a library that shouldn't be in there, whether it's for maturity level or whatever, and they come in through donations, they've been there for a while, the people that are there didn't purchase it. We still have that flexibility with this language. And then the final one is if we do have a challenge, a book challenge, we now need to report that to the commissioner. And I believe that the legislation says that it is the school board that reports, but it does have or designees. So, yeah. So those are the changes to the recently changed 606.5.
Okay, anybody have any questions on that? All right, thanks, Gary. That was everything on our session agenda, so looking for a motion to adjourn our work session. Motion by Natalie, second by Scott. All in favor, say aye. Excellent. Opposed? Work session is adjourned 9:08 PM. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Have a good night.